Hi everyone and welcome to Nutrition Summit 2017. This week we are covering food fads. So I'm Susan Watson, co-owner of Nutrition Academy, and I'm here with registered dietitian Angela Tucker, and we're going to be talking about vegan and vegetarian eating and why some people might think that it's a food fad or a trend, where really it's a way of eating, it's a cuisine, it's a meal, as well as a lifestyle. So we're super happy to have Angela here. Angela, please, we're very welcome to have you here.
Thank you, Susan.
Where are you based out of?
Well, right now I work in rural Manitoba, and I've been doing a little bit more work in kind of the public sphere here in Manitoba and Winnipeg locally.
Excellent, excellent. And how long have you been eating vegan or vegetarian?
Well, I went vegetarian about 12 and a half years ago, and it was about 9 years ago that I started making the transition towards being vegan.
Yeah.
I'll admit the first couple of years were a little bit rough for me because it's a huge life change, but it's been great, and it's really what inspired me to start learning more about nutrition, and what really fired up that passion for nutrition in my heart, and I'm really grateful for finding that in that way.
Yeah, excellent. I find that vegan and vegetarian eating is becoming very popular. We're getting a lot of clients call in just wanting us to review their diet to make sure they're doing it right, because there is a lot of misinformation. So today we're going to talk about some of the hard facts of what you need to do, even just like what's important when it comes to when you're cutting meat out of your diet, what that entails. And yeah, like we want to give you the right information. I think that I can thank Netflix for sending me so many clients over the last couple months, because they've got some pretty I don't even know how to call them, but some pretty harsh videos out there, I guess, about vegan eating, and why it's really good to move towards that way. But it almost scares people, I think, into like, can't touch meat, you have to do this. So I think that today, just going ahead and getting to the facts, I think is going to be a great way to bust some of those food myths.
Great.
Have you seen any of those Netflix videos?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some people be like, "Oh no, I don't know what to do now," and because you talked about transitioning, right? They saw the video and tomorrow they want to start. So it's quite interesting. So okay, let's get started with the questions. So today I'm just going to be interviewing Angela. Sorry about that. On some questions here. So, what are the main types of categories of vegetarians, and how are they all different?
Well, there's four main categories of vegetarianism. The first and most common one that we see is lacto-ovo-vegetarian, which we usually just term as vegetarian. People that eat this way, they won't consume meat, but they will consume other animal-based foods like eggs and dairy. And that's really how I got started on that transition, or on that journey. There's also ovo-vegetarians, which are people who will not consume meat or dairy, but they will eat eggs. And then there's lacto-vegetarians who won't eat meat or eggs, but they will eat dairy. And then finally, vegans who exclude any animal-based foods, so meat, dairy, or eggs. So basically, the entire diet is based on plant-based foods.
Okay, excellent. And I guess everybody's reasons for choosing one of those would be personal reasons, and you can kind of do a combination of any of those options, I would assume. Okay, so next question: is it safe to be vegan and only eat plant-based foods? So that's a good myth, or I guess question, food fad that we could talk about.
That's a great question. There is so much information out there, and it's really hard to know what's credible and what's not credible. Recently, in December of 2016, so just this past December, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics put out a position paper on vegetarian and vegan diets and nutrition and healthy eating. And what they said is that a diet based on plant-based foods can be very healthy, can be very safe and health promoting for all stages of life, whether it's pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, adolescence, even older adults, and as well as people like athletes that are very active and engaged in sports. With any way of healthy eating, though, it does take a little bit more planning, and we do need to be careful that we're getting different nutrients because being risking our health is not something that we want to do. So just like any way of eating healthy, though, it does take a little bit more planning. It's not hard to be a vegan per se. It's just that our environment isn't really always very conducive to it. It's gaining a lot more momentum, though. It's getting a lot more mainstream, which is why I'm here talking about it, because there's so much interest in it, and it's just another thing that I'm passionate about besides nutrition. And in fact, even in the younger generations, it is becoming a lot more common.
I mean, I'm just accounting for that coming from this Netflix video, because that's where the younger generation, I think, is coming from. But I don't know if there's other reasons why the younger generation is starting to pick up on this way of eating. But it definitely is a healthy way of eating. I fully support it, and I love helping people transition. I guess the biggest thing that I see when it comes to when we talk about the safety of it is people decide, I'm going to be vegan because I don't want to eat meat anymore. That's fine. But they just cut out all protein and don't realize. And then they become almost like carb junkies and just eat like bread and pasta. And like there's a specific way of making sure that your diet is balanced, which we're going to get into. But there's a lot more than just cutting meat out of your eating to go ahead and become a vegan or a vegetarian. So
yeah, that's so true. Because when we think of vegan, eating a vegetarian or vegan diet, or that way of eating or living, we always put so much emphasis on, I need to cut out this and I need to cut out that, and the emphasis is on cutting things out. But
it's
we really should be adding good things in.
Oh, and I think because you have to almost be more creative to get those flavors and get those same maybe properties that maybe you're trying to mimic. I find that vegan recipes taste better, right? Like I have a couple vegan cookbooks from Oshi Glows, and those recipes, oh my goodness, like I cook them, and my husband, who is a meat and potatoes man, he loves the vegan gravy that I make, and he loves the vegan shepherd's pie. He doesn't even really know that it's all lentil based, right? And so that's a true testament to being good in the kitchen when it comes to cooking, right? If your meat and potatoes fans are actually, they know that it's not, but they're like, this is not bad, I like it. So it does take more planning for sure. Maybe not more, just different planning. Yeah,
exactly. It's a behavior change, it's a lifestyle change, and it takes time.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some reasons a person might choose to go vegan?
So there's basically three main reasons why people choose to eat or live this way. One that we see commonly is for health reasons. A plant-based diet is associated with lots of health benefits, managing diabetes, managing heart disease, certain types of cancer as well. It's associated with lower rates of those conditions. So for that reason, there's a lot of major health organizations that are recommending more of a shift towards eating more plant-based foods, such as Health Canada, World Health Organization, to name a few. And even the Canadian Diabetes Association recognizes a plant-based diet as a way of managing blood sugars for people that have diabetes or that are at risk of it. So that's one common reason. Another one is for ethical reasons. As we're gaining more understanding on the sentient nature of animals, the complex social relationships that they have with one another, and realizing as well that the types of animals that we consider food or don't consider food is very different from one culture to, or can be very different from one culture to another. So sometimes people reflecting on that might they might choose to go vegan for those reasons. Another reason is also for the environment. Beans and lentils are some of the most sustainable crops that we can grow. They don't require as many resources. They're more of a efficient or resource efficient protein compared to meat-based, animal-based foods.
Yeah.
So for some people that are wanting to do all that they can for preserving the environment and for preserving the integrity of the earth, water, sustainability, and concern for fossil fuels and everything like that. Some people will go vegan for environmental reasons as well. Mm-hmm. And it's usually for a lot of people, I hear that they learn about this one part and then they go vegan for that reason, or they start shifting towards it for that reason, and then they start learning about all these other components, and it kind of becomes like a combination of all these different reasons that really just reinforce their values.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that it's always interesting to learn about all the different reasons why somebody would make those choices, like even just the environmental aspects of it. But I've got one more to add to your, reasons why. But and it doesn't necessarily have to be a reason, but as a benefit, is that it's definitely cheaper, right? I know when I was a starving student, I often found that it was a lot cheaper to make a lentil stew than a beef stew, and that you're able to save a lot of money. Even if you just do 1 or 2 vegan or vegetarian meals, it's a lot cheaper to use the meat alternative proteins than the animal proteins, and as the price of meat goes up, it's really beneficial to have a couple meals that are, even if it's just your lunches, that are plant-based proteins to save the pocketbook. So I think that's definitely a good reason too. Plus, and then with the health, right? All of the proteins have so much fiber in them that they help you feel full longer. So I do find that my vegan recipes, I can eat less and feel fuller longer because it has that protein and fiber combined.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love chickpeas.
I'm satiating too.
Yeah, awesome. So those are some great reasons. So what do you recommend is the best way in moving towards a plant-based diet? Do you think people should just jump right into it, or make the change overnight, or maybe slowly ease into it?
Yeah. So for some people, I've heard of some people just jumping right in and making the change overnight. That can work for some people. For my own personal experience and from talking with other people and from my knowledge on behavior change, I think it is a better idea to be patient with yourself, to take that time, and it's what it comes down to is self-care, and we don't want to feel guilty about our food choices per se. So just taking that time to reflect and taking those small steps, because it's really hard for us to make all these changes all at once. It can be really overwhelming, and in the long run, it might not be as sustainable that way. Whereas if we focus on taking those small steps, kind of like climbing a ladder, you just do it one step at a time. You're not just going to zip all the way to the top.
Yeah.
That way, it's going to be you're going to go through the motions more naturally that way, and it's going to become more of a lifestyle versus just something that you're going to do for a little while because you're following this specific plan that maybe wasn't working with your life. Whereas when you're taking those small steps, it actually becomes part of your lifestyle, and it becomes more sustainable that way.
Well, I'll just be blunt about this. If you jump in and do it cold turkey, you'll probably fail. I pretty much fail because there's so much to learn, and you might be trying to avoid all animal-based products and then not realize, like, oh, the honey that you put in your coffee, right, or your bread that you really like has honey in it, and then you're like, oh my goodness, I failed, right? I might as well just give up. That all or nothing attitude. You wanna ease into this and kind of learn as you go versus jumping in, because there's lots to learn, and guaranteed there'll probably be something that you were doing even though you thought you were on the up and up, and then realize later, and you have to be nice to yourself and be like, oh, I didn't know, oops, like that was yesterday, moving forward next day. So yeah, easing into it, and even just going part-time or a couple days a week is beneficial to your health as well as your pocketbook and the environment and all of those other reasons that we mentioned.
Oh, exactly. Every change counts, right?
Yep, absolutely. Okay, can you give some practical tips for making the transition, or ways that people can try introducing more plant-based meals into their daily lives?
So a great first step with anything is always to start where you're at. So like I said, we don't want to make those changes all at once overnight. So start where you're at. Make a list of some of your common go-to meals that you have most often. Take a look at them. Odds are some of them are probably already vegan or can be made vegan with some very simple swaps. So, incorporating more, like trying plant-based milks instead of cow's milk, for example, or if you want to cut back on the meat or replace the meat completely, finding ways of using beans and lentils in that way, or like pureed pulses that you can put into different baked goods, for example, or put into a soup or a sauce. Using even, veggie meats. There's so many different products available these days that makes that transition a lot easier than it was even 9 years ago when I started making the transition. Mm-hmm. It was a lot harder to find those products. Nowadays, you can find these replacement products, whether it's veggie meats or egg replacer or vegan cheeses. They're available even at, the big grocery stores just down the street.
Yeah.
So ways of, making those small tweaks here and there.
Yeah.
For those that are, planning on continuing on with this and just doing, going vegan and doing entire plant-based diet, I do suggest moving towards incorporating more of the whole foods, like the vegetables and fruits, whole grains, beans and lentils, nuts and seeds, and basing most of the diet on those foods, because those are the healthiest foods for us. That being said, having treats is okay. It's okay to enjoy some vegan ice cream or some vegan cheeses and vegan meats. Yeah. And they can make it, those kinds of foods can make it so easy to make that transition because they're familiar foods to us. Yeah. It doesn't feel like we're, taking big leaps and doing something really weird. I mean, people used to ask me when I was vegetarian, like, are you ever going to be vegan one day? And I was, vegans are so weird. I don't want to be vegan. Yeah, but it's interesting to see, the more that I've thought about things and the more that I've learned, I just kind of naturally progressed that way. Yeah. And then the final point of that is to be kind to yourself. Veganism is the heart of it is compassion. So self-compassion is also very important. There's no good that comes from beating yourself up over, eating something by accident or feeling like you've had a slip up, going to a restaurant and having something with a bit of cheese on it or something at first. And there's no point in beating yourself up over that because you're just not going to end up feeling good about it. And so it's better to practice that self-care and be patient. Don't feel guilty about it, and just give yourself that time to make those changes. Yeah, and absolutely. I can definitely vouch for that too, because that was definitely my experience.
Yeah. So how do you manage, like, say you were out somewhere and just that, like, you ordered something that you were pretty much for sure was 100% vegan, and then I don't know, after you had, like, you're eating about half of it, maybe, like, you realized that it wasn't. Like, how do you manage that, you personally?
For me, I always try to plan ahead if I'm going to a restaurant or something. I'll check out the menu if possible, or I'll call the restaurant ahead of time and ask them, hey, do you guys have anything, that you could whip together for me? Chefs really appreciate it if you call ahead instead of just showing up and being like, I'm vegan, what can you do for me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that way they can take inventory of what they have on hand and maybe something up. And, in fact, maybe they'll even enjoy it because they're making something that's different. They get to be creative. And oftentimes when you're looking at a menu, you can, even if there isn't anything that's completely vegan per se, oftentimes you can look at different sides or different appetizers and kind of like piece something together, or, asking for, like, if it's just, instead of just getting like a heaping plate of green lettuce or something like that, asking if you can get like some guacamole on it, or getting some beans or some seeds on that as well, just to make it a bit heartier, or even some brown rice. Just common ingredients that they might already have on hand. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So this is a really interesting, a really good information. What are some important nutrients that we need to keep in mind? Why are the nutrients important, and where can we get them from plant-based foods?
Yeah, so there's lots of important nutrients that we need. There's a few main ones that I wanted to cover today, though. One of them is protein. And this is such a common one. People are like, well, where do you get your protein? And, we get protein from so many different foods, especially with the whole grains, and especially with beans and lentils. And with those, we can make sure that we're getting all of the building blocks of those proteins, the amino acids, all of those building blocks that we need to make sure that, we need protein for literally every cell in our body. So it's important to be getting it. And so, having that balance of whole grains and beans, as well as nuts and seeds, we get some protein from those foods too. We do get some protein from vegetables, not as much as the whole grains and the legumes, though. So we do want to make sure that we're including those foods preferably at every meal. The only the only plant-based food that we don't get a lot of protein, or really any protein from, is fruits. They are very low in protein. So definitely, making sure that you're getting that balance with the whole grains and the beans and lentils. Another important nutrient is iron, which we need to keep our red blood cells healthy. It's also important for babies, for their brain development. So for iron, is another question. Where do you get your iron from if you're not eating meat? There are a lot of plant-based foods that do have iron. The difference is, instead of getting all of our iron from one place, such as meat, we're getting little amounts of iron from many different places. So it really adds up over the day. And so some really great sources are beans and lentils. I can't talk enough about beans and lentils. I just love really great sources are beans and lentils, and different nuts and seeds too, like sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds are good sources. So they're really awesome to put on oatmeal in the morning, for example, because oatmeal also has some iron in it. So molasses is a source of iron, which you can put it in biscuits or muffins, or you can even put it on your oatmeal if you want to. And with iron, the type of iron that is in plant-based foods, our bodies just don't absorb it as efficiently as the iron that's found in meats. So it's a good idea to take some steps to make sure that you're absorbing it properly. So one great example is having a source of vitamin C with that iron-rich meal. So basically citrus fruits, tomatoes, red peppers, to name a few. And if you're taking a calcium supplement, don't be sure not to take that calcium supplement with your meal, because that's going to prevent your body from absorbing that iron. And if you like drinking coffee or tea, try to have those between meals, because those can also prevent your body from absorbing iron. So making sure that you're getting a variety of those iron-rich foods throughout the day will make sure that you're getting enough from your diet. Another one is vitamin B12, which we need for our red blood cells, but also for our nervous system. It's a very, very important nutrient, and it's one nutrient that we really can't get from whole plant-based foods. So it's really important to supplement with it, or get it in a pill or a supplement, or have fortified foods such as soy milks, fortified soy milk, or plant-based milks, or veggie meats. I would say it's a good idea to supplement though, just so that you're making sure that you're getting that regular amount and that base is covered, because it is such an important nutrient. Another one is calcium. So calcium, like we know, it's important for keeping our bones strong and healthy. It's also important though for blood clotting, and it has other roles in our body as well. And with calcium, again, we can get it in smaller amounts from different whole plant-based foods, such as calcium-set tofu, certain low oxalate vegetables like bok choy, for example, or kale. We get some calcium from those foods. And what I mean by low oxalate is that oxalates are kind of like a compound or like a something in the food that binds to the calcium, and it just blocks your body from absorbing it. So having those low oxalate greens are great, but having like a fortified plant-based milk like soy milk or almond milk are also great sources of calcium. With that too, like on the subject of bone health, there are other nutrients that we need for bone health too, such as vitamin K, potassium, phosphorus, magnesium, which we actually can get from a plant-based whole foods diet. So. And on the subject of calcium is vitamin D. Yes. So vitamin D helps our body to absorb that calcium, and it has other roles in our body as well. And this is true for anyone living in a place where we just don't get enough sunlight. We should be supplementing with vitamin D just to make sure we're getting enough. We can make it from the sun, from having our skin exposed to the sun, but supplementing it's a great idea. And other ones are omega-3 fatty acids. So we do get some certain type of omega-3 fatty acids from some plant-based foods like ground flaxseed, hemp hearts, and chia seeds and walnuts. So including a lot of those kinds of foods too can make sure that you're getting enough.
Yeah, but do you think you're getting enough, or you should supplement with omega-3 too?
With omega-3s, there are supplements like because there's different types of omega-3 fatty acids. Like one of them that we get from marine, like from fatty fish, for example, is DHA and EPA, which can actually get from the fish actually get that DHA and EPA from their diet. They get it from microalgae. Yeah. So that microalgae can actually be cultured, and the DHA will be put into like a supplement or to different foods. Like I've seen it in flaxseed before. I've seen it added to soy milks, but I haven't seen that recently. Yeah. But it's be added to different foods, or you can get a supplement. Yeah. And the interesting thing about that is that in getting DHA or EPA that way, we're not going into the oceans to harvest it. We can produce a more sustainable way. Yeah. Yeah. So that's one option, for people that are concerned about their DHA, about getting enough of that type of omega-3 fatty acid, then that is definitely an option for them as well.
Yep. Okay, excellent. And what are some supplements that all vegans should be taking?
Definitely vitamin B12 and vitamin D. Yeah, those are two for sure.
Sorry, the connection just cut out. Can you repeat those?
Oh, definitely vitamin B12 and vitamin D. Okay. Those are two nutrients that are really hard, if not impossible, to get on a vegan diet. Vitamin B12, there's no reliable plant-based sources of it. There's some people that say, well, you can get it from like fermented foods, or you can get it from different types of seaweed. But the thing is that we just don't have enough evidence to show that there's enough vitamin B12 in those foods, and that it actually acts the same as the vitamin B12 that we use in our bodies. So there's not enough evidence to show that those are reliable sources. So for now, with the best evidence that we have, it's best to supplement with vitamin B12. And with vitamin D, especially living in Canada where we are, we just none of us get enough suns, and it's such an important nutrient. So.
Yeah, vegan or not, like I've been taking vitamin D all winter because I'm from the West Coast and I really don't like being out at all in the winter. And if I am, still all that you can see of me is my eyes. So
yeah. We're so buckled up anyway. So.
I know, it's not beneficial. So I'm really excited to hear about what are some meal ideas that you have, and how can we balance our plate to make sure we're getting enough of these important nutrients that we've been talking about.
Yeah. So meal ideas, there's so many different kinds. Personally, I love curries and stir fries. One really one thing one little trick that I always like to do is I always like to include, like fill up half my plate with vegetables, including lots of different kinds of vegetables, and then, rounding that out with some kind of whole grain, whether that's, like cooking up a whole grain, whether it's brown rice or quinoa, or even other ones that we might not normally think of, things like spelt, like just cooking up spelt, or even wheat berries, or rye, or triticale. There's so many different kinds out there. So, it just goes to show having more plant-based foods can really open up a lot of doors. It's not just about cutting things out. It's often about, finding other things that I can add to my diet. And then also having some kind of protein in there too. So having some beans and legumes. And again, there's so many different kinds with that. You can do like a dal, like a lentil stew sort of thing. That's really common in India. And especially with trying different ethnic cuisines. A lot of these cuisines have found really interesting and really satisfying, wonderful ways of flavoring all these different foods, like pulses. Yeah. So, trying different cuisines, opening up a cookbook, like an ethnic cookbook, and picking out some different recipes, checking out a restaurant. Ethiopian food is actually really great. There's a couple here in Winnipeg. One of them I've checked out before, and they have some really interesting flavors, and they're so delicious. And some people even make Ethiopian food at home and try it that way. So those are some ideas. But even trying like a veggie pizza, it doesn't have to be all new things. You can be trying some of your old favorites and just kind of veganizing them, or just finding ways to include more plant-based proteins, including different types of vegetables, different types of grains. Yeah. And
oh, sorry, go on.
For balancing out our plate, there's a few different resources. I have a couple of pictures here. For example, there's this one, the vegan plate. There's a little bit of a glare on it.
That's good.
Yeah, and this is by vegan dietitians Visanto Molina and Brenda Davis.
Oh, I have her book. I bought it at the DC conference.
Yeah, I met her there. She's such Visanto is so great. Yeah, so I really like this picture because it's visual, and it's kind of like that My Healthy Plate sort of thing, but it's a focus on plant-based foods, and it's a great visual way for us to plan out our meals, make sure we're getting the right foods in the right amounts. So like I said, filling up about half our plate with vegetables, and maybe including some fruits in there, or having some fruits on the side for dessert or something like that. Including some different types of beans and lentils, including some whole grains in there. About a quarter of our plate for each of those, but also making sure to include some nuts and seeds. Like, we get some protein from those, we get some different vitamins and minerals, we get some healthy fats from nuts and seeds. And then in the middle of this, you actually notice that you actually get some calcium-rich foods from all the different groups. So even like oranges, for example, have some calcium in them. Some of our leafy greens, and even some of our nuts and seeds have them.
That's a really great plate.
It's a visual way to kind of plan out our meals. And, one of my favorite things to do is, always have some different things in the fridge. So I always have some kind of cooked up whole grain that's ready to go, some kind of bean that's ready, some kind of cooked whole bean that's ready to go. I usually will do like a big batch in my pressure cooker, like on a Sunday or something like that. And then I'll have some different vegetables. One of my favorites is roasted vegetables. So I'll do like a big pan of roasted vegetables at the start of the week. And, with that, I can do a lot of different things. I can, one day I might use some of the chickpeas and brown rice, and I'll pull out some frozen vegetables out of the fridge and do like a quick curry, and I'll mix that with the brown rice and the chickpeas. Yep. And it's just kind of a quick thing at the end of the day. Or even, throwing that into a soup, for example, or combining all of those things like some roasted vegetables and some beans and some grains on top of some leafy greens and making a salad. So with some of those basics, having some of those basics on hand can make meal prep really easy and really quick throughout the week.
Mm-hmm. My favorite, I talk about this to some people that have troubles trying to get lunch in, is I like to make power bowls and cook it up on the weekend and have it ready to go. So I'll cook up a big batch of whole grain pasta, and I'm not as time efficient using my slow cooker for my beans. I go to Superstore and get the canned beans that are already cooked. And
too.
Yeah, and yeah. I rinse them. I rinse all the salt water off of them, and then so I've got the cooked pasta. I've got a whole bunch of usually a mix of like black beans and chickpeas, and then I chop up a whole bunch of solid type vegetables. So like peppers and celery, and I chop up a bunch of those. Then I get a big bowl and I put them all in together. And then I get my favorite salad dressing, and I mix it all together. So sometimes just like a vinaigrette salad dressing, mix that all together and then portion it out into my bowls or my containers for the week. And you've got your vegetables, you've got your protein, you've got your carbohydrates, and it's so easy to just pull out of the fridge and you're ready to go. It's a very simple way to incorporate beans and lentils. The other one that I really like to do is not fully vegan, but if I'm making, say, hamburgers or even like a pasta, so if it's a hamburger, what I'll do is I might do 50% hamburger meat and 50% lentils, and it stretches the meat out, but you're also incorporating some of those plant-based proteins. And then if you're doing like a pasta where you're doing spaghetti sauce, you can throw in your lentils into that recipe as well and kind of stretch it out, take out some of the meat, and then eventually get to that point where maybe you don't even want to add the meat, you're just using the lentils. So yeah, and then for me, I've always really liked the Indian flavors in the curries with the coconut milk in the curries, and actually a Little Nutrition company party that we had a potluck, and I chose the theme just an Indian night, and everybody brought in Indian dishes, and yeah, it was lots of flavors. So well, I think that's great. I think we're going to actually post some recipes inside the workshop that we have here so that you guys can have some ideas. And I know that we have some documents from our dietitian resource pen that I think I'll upload for Nutrition Month, so that if anybody's interested in getting some more information, they have some sound advice of what to do and steps that they can take, whether they want to go full-time, part-time, or even just try it out for a little while. The health benefits are definitely there, but you want to just make sure that you're doing it balanced, that you don't just cut out meat and not have any protein. It's taking one thing out, but I think it's even more important what you're adding back into your diet if you want to go vegan. Is that what you would agree with?
Definitely, yeah. It's not about eliminating things. It's about it's about abundance. It's about including different things and trying new foods too.
Yeah. If you don't it's about trying new vegetables. It's also in having variety, right? Like you have to have that variety. You have to have a little bit of nuts and seeds. You have to have a little bit of beans and lentils, and have that readily available to make sure that you're getting a balanced diet. So very great to speak with you, Angela. This has been great. I'm surprised our paths haven't crossed, but I'm out in Niverville, small town Manitoba. You're out, was it Portage?
I'm out in Gladstone right now.
Oh,
actually.
Yeah. So you get different
further out there.
Yeah, same regional health authorities, but different areas. So it was great to have you. Thank you for supporting Nutrition Month and all the work that's going on this month. And do you have I know you're on Instagram. Do you want to give a shout out to your Instagram and any social media handles that you have?
Yeah, sure. I am on Instagram. It's probably the social media that I'm likely most active on, especially during the summer when it's like garden time and I'm like making all this awesome food from the garden, and I love gardening, so I'm always posting pictures of the progress of it. So I have a lot on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. So for both of those, it's Prairie Sprout. Or Prairie Sprout Vegan for Facebook. I'm on Twitter as well. I'm not quite as active on Twitter though, but if you wanted to check that out, Prairie Sprout PB.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I know you caught my eye on Instagram. You were getting, was it heirloom seeds from your garden? And I know how difficult that is. What were you getting seeds from? It was maybe your beets, like you were, you had put it in the garden over the winter and then were collecting the seeds the next year. And I've tried it myself, and the most I can do is I'll collect my cilantro seeds and use those for cooking.
Yeah, like with it, it's the same thing with gardening and making lifestyle changes. It's about taking those steps, right?
Yeah.
I didn't start saving seeds right off the bat. I kind of got into it slowly and was doing research about it and found out, I was thinking like, how do carrots and beets make seeds? Because you never see the seeds on the plant. But carrots and beets, they're biennial, so they like to grow over 2 growing seasons. We think that the end of that plant's lifespan or whatever is when we're ready to eat it. But that plant wants to go and make seeds, so that's what they think its lifespan is. So they want to grow over 2 seasons. So for carrots and beets, we grow them in the garden, bring them in over the winter, keep them in the fridge, make sure they don't go like soft or moldy or anything like that. And then come spring, dig a little hole and put them back into the soil, and they'll actually shoot up like a stalk and will bloom and produce flowers and then produce seeds. So it's a really interesting process. It's just amazing what nature can do.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great. Well, that's what caught my eye with some of your stuff, because my mother-in-law and I, we do gardening out here, and we've always wanted to do that. But I was really happy when I got free seed tomatoes this year, so I threw all my old the ones that got attacked by the birds, I just reincorporated them into the ground, and then this year I had a whole bunch of free seed tomatoes that actually produced seeds. So I was like, or plants. I was like, oh yay, I feel good. So
but those are the best. Hey, it's just like a little like present.
I know. Okay, well, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll connect again through social media. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.